Hey guys, welcome to the Choke Points. And in this video, we're going to talk about end of Maduro regime. So, what exactly is going on here, right? See, in my videos, I have said this for months that world is moving towards a massive realignment, and it's going through a massive realignment as the old world order breaks and the new one forms, which is driven by this whole entire realignment actually is driven by what? Driven by strategic positioning, critical minerals, supply chains, control of key corridors, all that. Okay. Like for example, I'll give you some examples of it too. Like for example, we talked about there was rare earth deals, rare earth talks, right? Then when you look into President Putin's visit to India, it was a supply chain. He talked about INSTC and all that. Then control of key corridors when President Trump talked about Panama Canal and all that, right? In the very beginning. Then also he also talked about the Greenland and all too. But what was all that? All that was part of what? Strategic positioning, critical minerals, supply chains, control of key corridors, and all that. It all falls into this grouping. Okay. Now, if you read the US national security strategy document, okay, the priority is very clear that Western Hemisphere is treated as the core security zone. And what the document itself frames as renewed Monroe Doctrine logic and an to enlist and expand approach to lock down the region. That's the whole entire goal. Okay. And that's where, and that's when Venezuela actually matters. Now, the Maduro's capture is not just about Venezuela. Okay. It also signals that how right now Washington thinks about the new order. Now, uh, for example, I mean, if you look into it, the President Trump has already talked about BRICS. He has talked about nobody who is against the dollar will be accepted or tolerated, and this and that, all that thing he has already talked about, right? So, how the Washington right now thinks about the new order and how that will be enforced close to home, it's all clearly given into the national security strategy document. I mean, I have read the document end to end. Okay. And Venezuela is part of that story. Now, here's the thing though. I mean, everyone read the news, Venezuela gone, this, that. I said this thing 2 years ago that this is the final thing. Okay. That this is how uh, Western Hemisphere will be secured. In fact, long before President Trump even said that thing in the national security strategy document. I said this thing like 2 years ago that ultimately, if US has to secure its interest, then they will have to start with Venezuela, they will have to move to Brazil, and so on and so forth. Now, the question really at this point, at least in this current junction, and for this video, okay, who replaces the Maduro legally and in practice and can transition produce a functioning state? Because every regime change has always one problem that a vacuum gets created and nobody knows what to do next. Doesn't matter who that is. Like for example, Bangladesh had the same problem. Who A regime change happened, and guess what? Muhammad Yunus was sitting there, and he has no clue. He's like next Joe Biden. He has no clue what he's doing. He has no clue what's going on. It's all becoming a jihadi state right now. So who and then next question is that who is next after Venezuela? Who is in the list? Meaning which countries fall into the next ring of pressure as the US tries to consolidate the hemisphere. So we are going to talk about all that in this video, guys. Please do like and subscribe, and let's get started. Okay. First of all, let me share my screen real quick and then we will talk about everything else. All right. So, and here we go. Okay. So, what's happening is that it captured US says that it captured Maduro and floors in Caracas during a pre-dawn raid. Actually, I was up and I I saw the Chinooks movement and all that thing, but I wasn't, quite honestly, I was not very sure that they're going to just simply pick him up, just like DoorDash order or something. That's what they did to him. Why? Because not a single missile was fired from the Venezuelan side. Then it seemed like there was no preparation for for Venezuela. Were they expecting some sort of um, foot on the ground situation? Well, this is for foot on the ground. I mean, there were just Chinooks and Apaches. So the question really is that what happened to the Venezuelan military? So, anyways, now, uh, President Trump actually said that this is a very highly compressed timeline. Mission reportedly lasted under 30 minutes or so, and with a push to grab him before he could reach a secure room or something like that. Then Reuters reports that operation was months in making. It was all planned, including training a mock-up of a target site, relied on CIA asset close to Maduro to track movement and timing and all that thing. Airstrikes reportedly hit Caracas air defenses. I mean, all those things they're saying. But once again, I think in this whole entire thing, the only one thing is correct. The CIA did a very good job of finding the asset, finding a CI who can actually give the correct information, because it's all about information with something this clean. I mean, this is the cleanest operation you can ever see. Okay, this is the cleanest. I mean, quite frankly. So not a single thing was fired. In fact, I think that these type of things happen when your internal military leadership also doesn't want to fight. They don't believe, and they don't believe in the political leadership, then they don't want to fight. They just don't want to. Why would they want to get killed in the process? And why would they want to put the life of the innocent Venezuelans at risk? So, so what that tells me is uh, that it was all already decided, and Maduro somehow inherently he knew that this is the outcome. This is gonna be the outcome, and so here's the result. Now, that's what happened. Now, let's go into this. So, President Trump, first of all, he announced it and he said that the United States has successfully, uh, one second, carried out a large scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro. Okay, this right here against President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. Okay, this operation was done in conjunction with the U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. There will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you for your attention to this matter, of course, and that's what I voted for. Okay, now see, Maduro is also not just part of one this U.S. national security strategy of securing the Western Hemisphere. There's a lot more going on to this whole entire picture than we know. See, another thing is that there is a system that has been running behind the scenes and that has been eating the US system like a termite. Okay, and President Trump has been fighting that system and has pledged to fight the system from the day one. And these things actually I mean, these things just don't go away overnight. Okay, it's a long fight, and that's gonna continue. And what exactly Maduro was doing was that Maduro was funding and financing their operation through the drugs. Okay, and it was all drug money that was being pushed, and these uh, I would say behind the scenes folks were actually uh, being funded. This is how they were being funded. Now, if you look into, I will give you a parallel to this whole thing. Is like, for example, Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan, what happened in Afghanistan? The same parallel system was actually being funded through Afghanistan's drugs. Then Syria, look into Syria. Why do you think that President Trump actually shook hands with the leader of she's al-Nusra. I mean, the guy who actually used to be a al-Qaeda terrorist, and President Trump went and shook hands with him. Why is that? He shook hands with him because uh, he wanted to make sure that all the Syrian oil and all that is not gonna be used to fund the same set of folks. Okay, so this has been a long fight, and Maduro is another pillar of that fight that was funding the whole entire system. Okay, so Afghanistan right now is cool; they are not funding anything now. USAID is gone. Then, if you look into it, then you find that Syria is also now calm, and Russians moved out of Syria. Turkish are like, okay, we are not going to do anything. Now Syria is sanctions have been removed. That was the terms and conditions that we will remove the sanctions from you, but you're not going to fund any of that system. And now I'm not saying exactly, I'm not using the exact words because of the YouTube. Probably they may just simply flag me or something. So I'm just trying to avoid that. All right. But I think most of you who are watching this get the picture. So that's what Venezuela was part of. There are a few other things too, but I will get to that later on in the video. Okay. Now, Secretary of State, I think this man, I have lots of respect for this man. This man is a genius. All right. This man is a genius. He's very capable of thinking strategically and very knowledgeable guy. Okay. I mean, we love him, hate him. I am a personal fan of Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Okay. So, what Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, he's saying is that Maduro is not the president of Venezuela, and his regime is not a legitimate government. Fair enough. Maduro is the head of the cartel De Los Sols, a narco terror organization which has taken the possession of a country. Now, see, this is how you aptly put something like this, okay? And he is under indictment for pushing drugs into the United States. That's it. This is the perfect lining. This is how you narrate the actual story. That Maduro is not the president of the Venezuela. And for those who don't know, this is the primary reason actually Maduro's Venezuela was not allowed in the BRICS organization as well. Brazil just simply did not allow it. Why? Because President Lula of Brazil had problem with the illegitimate government, so-called government of Venezuela. Maduro is the head of the cartel of De Los Sols, a narco terror organization which has taken the possession of a country. I think this, you cannot put any better than this. Few lines, and exactly it says everything that it needs to say. Okay, so that's what Secretary Marco Rubio said. Now let's move to what exactly is going on. Now we have to understand the reactions, okay? Chinese reaction. All right, what China is saying. China is deeply shocked by and strongly condemns the US's blatant use of force against sovereign state in an action against its president. So what are you doing against Taiwan? I mean, right now, I mean, your amphibious vehicles are actually circling Taiwan right now, right at this moment. Such hegemonic acts of the US seriously violate international law and Venezuela's sovereignty and threaten peace and security in Latin America. Look who's talking. Tibet is a living example of it. Just 2 days ago, just a couple of weeks ago, actually, Chinese arrested an Indian national. They were hassling him for an Indian national who was from Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh, saying that oh, Arunachal Pradesh is part of China. So meaning that these whatever they claim, so if your country has that in your passports, they will gonna hassle you for that. And then these clowns they talk about the sovereignty. Okay. China firmly opposes it. Nobody gives a damn whether you oppose or you don't oppose. We call on US to abide by international law and the purposes and principles of UN Charter and stop violating other countries' sovereignty and rights. Yes, international law, fair enough. International law applies to a properly elected government and a system. All right, when the government is not properly elected, and if the government itself is not following the UN Charter, then how do you say that it's a valid government? And when the government is not valid, then international laws don't apply. I mean, this country is the one that is supporting right now Russian invasion of Ukraine, and now these guys are talking about UN Charter. These are the guys who have border disputes with almost 16 to 17 countries, and they're talking about UN Charter right now. And that's the thing. That's the hypocrisy of everything. Okay, so so anyone who feels guilty that a US has invaded Venezuela or I said, don't feel guilty about it. That's how the geopolitics works. That's how the world works. Okay, that's perfectly normal. All right. So now let's look into the other reactions because this is going to be very interesting. Colombia, which shares a border with Venezuela, called for an urgent de-escalation. Urgent de-escalation. There is no escalation, man. I mean, operation is done in 30 minutes. What about escalation here? It said it had implemented steps to protect the civilian population, preserve stability on the Colombian Venezuelan border, and promptly address any potential humanitarian or migration needs. This is the country that is known for human trafficking. Okay, all they do is human trafficking, and that goes into the organ business, or I so-called organ donors and all that thing. This is the country right here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now when the President Trump actually took oath and all, then in the very first few months, it was the Colombian president who was talking smack. We will do this, we will do that, blah blah blah. So these are the guys, okay, that they ask for urgent de-escalation. Now let's look at the Cuban president Miguel Diaz-Canel called the operation a criminal U.S. attack. What's common in Colombia and Cuba, and these are all part of the Western Hemisphere and in this system. And Cuba is again a threat, straight up threat. Okay, I don't even have to explain this. Okay, he said the country denounced the attack and called for an urgent reaction from international community. What reaction? Everything happened. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. By the time these guys, I mean, by the time these guys come up with something, all this will be over, and Maduro will be in jail. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva called the US actions a serious affront to Venezuela's sovereignty. Oh, the same guy is talking about Venezuela's sovereignty now. When just few years, just what I would say into 2024, he's the one who blocked Venezuela's BRICS membership, and at that time he didn't like the Venezuelan government, so-called government. Now all of a sudden, Venezuela's sovereignty. Let me guess. I will tell you why that is later on in the video. Okay, so stay with me till the end. Please do like and subscribe. Okay, what I'm going to tell you, this video is actually not just a video. This video is going to be the prediction for next 5 years too. Okay, actually not 5 years, but next 3 years. So he said the strikes and capture of Maduro cross an unacceptable line and threaten the preservation of region as a zone of peace, according to AFP. That's your Brazil's reaction. Okay, now let's see what else is going on. Now India, Russia, sorry, Iran and Russia. Let's see what they have to say. Okay, Iran also condemned the attack, calling it a flagrant violation of national sovereignty and territorial integrity of Venezuela. News agency reported Mr. Trump recently responded to reports that at least blah blah blah. We're not interested in all that. And President Trump, as usual, said locked and loaded and ready to go to Iran. All right. Russian foreign ministry accused the US of an act of armed aggression against Venezuela. This is deeply concerning and condemnable in a statement according to Reuters news agency. So as far as Russians are concerned, our great secretary of state Marco Rubio, he called out actually uh, Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, openly on mic. He said that yes, they may condemn, they may say all these things, but behind the closed doors, we both had the understanding, we both had that talk and conversation about all these things. And he also knows it. And then he said that he said that Mr. Lauro, I hope you hear me, man. You hear me, and what I'm saying, I think you understand what I'm saying too. And they both talked about it. So clearly, there was an understanding behind the scenes that was established between the Russians and the Americans. Okay, so these things just don't happen out of the blue, guys. All right. So this is what it is. So they will condemn and all that sovereignty, all this, good words will be used. Now, next, the pretext used to justify such actions are unfounded, illogical animosity has prevailed over pragmatism and the willingness to build relationship based on trust and predictability. The statement said, in current situation, it is important first and foremost to prevent further escalation and to focus on finding a way out of situation through dialogue. Russian government called for Venezuela to be guaranteed the right to determine its own destiny without any destructive, let alone military interference from outside, and bagged other calls for an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. Like UN Security Council resolves the matter. I seriously doubt that. When that has happened, I don't even remember. All right. Now, now about this whole thing. See, Russians or Chinese or anybody, nobody was going to say anything. Like I said in the very beginning of the video, that all this is a realignment, and these understandings have already been established. That this is our area, this is our territory, so we are going to take control of it. No more of this, all these dictators running the show and doing drugs and delivering cartels and this and that, and all the no more parallel government BS is going to happen. All that has been already decided. Okay, so Russians are not going to say anything simply because the Russians wants to get out of Ukraine. Okay, they want that, and Russians have already made it very clear that this is our backyard. You stay out of it. So, so Russians and Americans have that understanding. And Taiwan. Now, next is Taiwan. Now, China actually will do something about Taiwan. And that is also another understanding. China may say condemn and this and that, all the sovereignty of Venezuela and this and that. People make those political statements to rub it in the face down the line. Okay, that's all they do. That's why these statements have to be made. But at the end of the day, China is planning to do the same thing. Okay, so these things are going to happen pretty rapidly in next, I would say, 90 or so days. All right, so it's gonna happen. 2026 is gonna get very interesting. All right, so question really is, who is going to replace Maduro? So we all know Maria Corina Machado, but she has been the opposition leader. She had had an overwhelming majority and all that, and so she may be the next candidate, but President Trump actually made a statement. He said that we will control Venezuela until we figure out a smooth transition. Meaning, all in all, he was saying is that until we uh, figure out who is going to run the country, and somebody who will actually be compliant to us rather than anybody else. Otherwise, legal process is that if president is gone, then vice president should take over the country. That is Delcy Rodriguez. Now, but I seriously doubt that that's gonna happen. All right. Now, either so regime institution succession, meaning that the process that's the standard procedure, or the opposition-led interim, which will be our Maria Corina Machado. Machado is a Nobel laureate. Of course, Nobel laureate meaning that you pay them money legally, and and buy them. That's what it is. She's also bought in reality, in the context of this video, to make sure that video has integrity and all that, no favoritism here. So yeah, she's bought. So clearly that she should be the next candidate. But because if you look into Bangladesh situation after regime change, who is there? It's the Muhammad Yunus. Muhammad Yunus is also Nobel Peace Prize winner. Okay, so these are not coincidences. All these Nobel Peace Prizes are given to the candidates who will actually do the job of the parallel system. Okay. Now, so question now is coming back to what we were discussing, the main point here. Main point of who is going to be the next. See, I have few candidates These are the candidates that I have selected, and I have my own theory on this thing. Okay. So let's talk about it. First candidate is Greenland. Okay. Now, Greenland, we talked about it. Why Greenland is there? Because strategically, Greenland is pretty much quite close to the Arctic. Hmm? And when President Trump actually started the term, Vice President J.D. Vance went to Greenland as his representative to talk about Greenland's takeover. Okay. But Dutch government, they simply denied it. They said that that's not going to happen. Now, but is it over? I seriously doubt it. Okay. Just because Dutch government is thinking something, that it means nothing. Okay. It will happen. Is just that uh, first of all, backyard needs to be cleaned up. All right. Next one in, and then next in line is Mexico. Okay. I think that Mexico is next in line because the president, what's her name? She is. Hold on. So if you look into it, then right here, okay, Mexican President Sheinbaum, she is practically she is not running the government. Let's face the reality, okay? Claudia Sheinbaum, the cartel is running the government, and I have seen the videos where cartels were just simply holding her hand by the wrist and all that thing in a threatening posture. All right, while she was the president, so clearly she doesn't have much of a say in things. Okay, she's just a what you call it, the poster person or poster woman. Okay. So next one in line after Greenland, I think, is Mexico. President Trump has already made this very clear right here. Trump wants cartels run Mexico. He also asked President Claudia Sheinbaum that, hey, should I have do you want us to eliminate the cartels? She said, no, we will handle it this or that. Yeah, she knows that she can't handle anything. So now, if she cannot handle anything, then it will become our business to handle this business. Why? Because it does impact us. So why President Trump hasn't done anything yet? Why he did Venezuela first? See, uh, there is a reason for it. Reason is that midterm is coming, hmm? And there are lots of Mexican in this country. There are lots and lots of great hardworking Mexican in this country who vote, okay, and yet they love Mexico no matter what. All right. Now, for those who don't know the history of it, then I will put things in perspective for you. Okay, why of America was Gulf of Mexico back in the day. The Gulf of America was Gulf of Mexico back in the day because Texas, Arizona, and California were part of Mexico. Okay, America used to be smaller than Mexico. Mexico used to be a very big country. Okay, so normally the Gulf is named after the largest country, that is largest coastline, primarily. Anyways, so so election is coming. So clearly he doesn't want to commit to an operation, something that will actually that may backfire. Okay, so that's why he is not even talking about Mexico right now, at least not until the midterm. Okay, if he wins the midterm, things go smooth, then probably year 2027 is when I'm looking that Mexico will be the next one. Why? Because once again, the parallel go system that I was talking about earlier, it's there too. It has to be eliminated. Okay, these things that have been cartels have been predominantly sitting there and doing things. I mean, none of these things happen. You are the United States of America, and the most powerful force to be reckoned with, and yet you have few mosquitoes called cartels and running the scene in your own backyard, and you can't do anything about it, really. Why is that? It happens because of some sort of internal inside support. Nothing happens without that. Okay, so there are elements that are involved in this whole thing from the US political system. Okay, so clearly that's why when the cartels will be taken out, then that system is going to collapse too. That will be the nail in the coffin finally. Okay, so so that's the next thing. All right, now then after Mexico, next is I think Brazil. Brazil faced a regime change attempt in 2023 as well. And this is where President Lula all of a sudden made those statements. And Brazil happens to be part of BRICS and been talking about de-dollarization and this and that, has faced 50% tariffs as well. So I'm thinking that Brazil could be next too. So if once we secure Brazil, then I think that pretty much the entire South American, the Latin American continent will be secure. Okay, except for one or two elements. And then Brazil, then we have Canada in line too. Now some of you will be like, oh, why Canada? See, why Canada? Because Canada is part of that parallel system. Okay. Now, once again, I'm trying to avoid being specific here because of YouTube. YouTube normally blocks those videos or just kills the impression, especially for small channels. So, but what Canada is doing is that it is not its own country, it is run by something else. Okay. And if it is run by something else or someone else, then it will become a nuisance and a problem down the line. So, regime change operation to free Canada from that system is needed. Okay. And if that happens, then and that's another way to basically integrate Canada, Greenland, US, and all that into one system of Western Hemisphere Monroe Doctrine strategy that is there. Okay, so we will see Canada next too, or we could see Canada next in line. Okay, now some of you may disagree on it, some of you may, but this is just my theory, guys. All right, if you have anything better, then let me know. But my calculation is that Canadian government will be gone. This government, in fact, the whole entire Canadian system will be gone too. In fact, I think that Canada, instead of following the whole constitutional monarchy system, I think Canada will probably will change it to the US presidential style system. Okay. And this should happen in next 3 years. Now, when, I don't know. But next 3 years, that's the whole thing. I mean, yeah, it looks like a long shot, but I can assure you that it's not that much of a long shot. Okay. And then last but not least is Iran. Okay. Now, Iran is a very key element, and it is something I would say a uh, very it's a clearest escalation theater on our list. Okay. Now, the problem with Iran is this, that Iran happens to be a roadblock in the West's Central Asia strategy. Okay. Now, if you notice, that President Trump has been trying to be friends with Kazakhstan. Why would he want to be friends with Kazakhstan? Simply because China's BRI comes from Kazakhstan. Russia's Central Asia strategy heavily depends on Kazakhstan, and uh, China's Mediterranean strategy goes through Kazakhstan, through Tehran, and then through Mediterranean. That was the whole point of it. So if you remove the Iran from the system and put your own government there, then it has a serious impact. Serious impact on what? Serious impact on Russia's INSTC, the North South corridor. Then it will have an impact big on BRICS. BRICS has been trying to become an oil-based alliance, and lots of things are going to happen. So Iran becomes a serious escalation point. Okay. Now, how that's going to happen, I will talk about all that in another video. But for now, these are the few candidates that are in line that will see the problem down the line. Okay. So This is it for this video, guys, and I hope you learned something. Please do like and subscribe, and take care. I'll talk to you guys in another video.